Also, just another thing that it kind of bothered me, and I just want to put this in kind of a... This is more of a scientific objection, I guess, I want to say.
You're gonna scientifically object to something in Doctor Who?
All right, well, not really, not science-y. Not really, but, like...
Remember evolution in Full Circle?
Well, okay.
I'm Tom Dickinson.
And I'm Louis Midas.
And this is The Cloister Room,
a podcast about Doctor Who and other things.
You know, I have to say that there were some things I liked about this episode, and then there were other things that I really didn't like about this episode, leaving me with an overall kind of meh about this episode.
Really?
Yeah, really.
I've heard that from some other people, but I loved it. I just completely loved it.
Really?
Yeah, I think part of the reason for that may be that I went in with a very low expectation.
Okay.
Because of all the 5 episodes, and I don't know how aware you are of this, but like all the names of the episodes have been highly, publicized, and the BBC has released like promotional poster art for every episode, and so every episode is basically out there, and people are basically expecting it. And this was the one that was lowest on my list because I had a feeling it would just be dinosaurs on a spaceship, and the entire thing would just be like some dinosaurs on a spaceship, and very little would happen other than they would encounter some dinosaurs.
That's reasonable.
On a spaceship. Because, I mean, obviously I've seen the film Snakes on a Plane, and there is nothing that happens in that movie that is not encompassed by the title.
You have a point there. I wouldn't say that I went in with low expectations. To contrast you, I have been paying almost no attention at all to what the BBC has been releasing in terms of promotional material. So I have no idea what is going on. And from that perspective, what I was expecting going in was an episode of Doctor Who. And that was about it. I did know that the episode was called Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, and I've seen all the trailers for it. Or I saw whatever trailer came, at the end of Asylum of the Daleks. But that's really just been it. So I guess what I'm saying is that I was expecting an episode of Doctor Who, and in some senses I got it.
In some senses, this was an episode of Doctor Who.
Right. There were parts of it that I just wasn't thrilled with. One of which would be the gang.
The gang.
As the Doctor calls it. Mm-hmm. Apparently, he randomly chose this particular moment to suddenly have a gang.
This isn't the first time he's done that, though. Like, he did it in A Good Man Goes to War.
I guess he did. But the thing is, in this particular instance, it seemed a little contrived. So in A Good Man Goes to War, the Doctor knew he was going to war. And so he thought, well, I better get some warriors. And so it made sense that he'd be like, all right, I'm going to call for backup here. Here, this is just kind of exploring a apparent derelict spaceship. And there's really no reason, I think, to just be all of a sudden like, you know what, I'm going to get a bunch of people to go with me for this. And it turned out to work really well for him. Like, really, really well. So
this is a fair point.
He just happens to bring along a big game hunter on a spaceship full of big game without knowing that there is big game on this spaceship.
That spaceship got game.
Yes. And he also happens to bring along Rory's dad, which is also by complete accident, which just turns out to be crucial for flying the spaceship. And I just feel like I was just begging the Doctor to at some point be like, wow, this really worked out well. Just a hint of lamp shading would have made it all okay, but I didn't get that. And so I just felt like, what's going on here? It just felt really kind of contrived to me.
Yeah, that is a fair criticism, I suppose, that it all just works out a little too nicely, given his apparent randomness. But I thought it was fun.
Well, no, I'm not complaining that it wasn't fun.
Right, but I mean, a lot of the time, especially in Doctor Who, there are things that will seem a little bit contrived, or things that aren't explained very well, or in this case, things that coincidentally happen to work out very well. But I thought that having Riddell was a fun character to have, and having Rory and his dad, that was also fun. So the fact that these fun things aren't really justified all that well, I can see how it could be a problem for someone. It's not a problem for me.
Okay. Well, I am that someone.
I guess.
I guess I am. Yes, there are times when things aren't explained very well. Like in a lot of Stephen Moffat's episodes, things are just not explained very well. This was something I think we observed in Series 6, particularly with why River was needed to kill the Doctor and things like that. Mm-hmm. But we can kind of guess at why that might be. But here, there's nothing you can really say to sort of rationalize it, how well this worked out and things like that. And I don't know. For me, that just kind of took me out of the episode. But there were other things. And I do think that this episode was fun. I just wish that it had been a little bit more believable, I guess.
So less fun. I'm going to point out something that I didn't think was very good.
Okay.
I like the idea of having comedy robots.
I actually liked those guys.
That are voiced by David Mitchell and Robert Webb, who I love. Uh-huh. I don't know if you're familiar with Peep Show.
I am not.
Or That Mitchell and Webb Look, which is, Peep Show is a sitcom that they star in together, and That Mitchell and Webb Look is a sketch comedy show that they star in together. So they're sort of a comedy duo that I'm a big fan of. But I actually thought the funny lines that were given to the robots were not all that funny.
True.
Like things like, "You need to learn some manners," and then Rory responds, "You need to learn some manners." I think the Robert Webb one responds, "No, you need to learn some manners, Mr. Manners." And that just sounds to me like something that would be written into a script and being like, "All right, we're gonna have a joke here. We'll think of it later, but for now, we're just gonna put this here to signify the fact that a joke goes here."
Like, maybe they forgot to, they were in Microsoft Word and they forgot to merge the documents to the new one. They forgot to track changes or whatever.
Yeah, they weren't tracking changes. There's just so many untracked changes in this script. Because I was conscious of, who David Mitchell and Robert Webb were, it kept bothering me that all of the lines went to David Mitchell and Robert Webb didn't get nearly as many lines.
Okay.
So that seemed weirdly lopsided to me. That might not have been a problem for you, though.
No.
Because you don't care.
Right.
Yeah, but the notion of having, like, two comedy robots and one of them almost never talks. And I guess the shtick is that they kind of bicker with one another, but they don't actually bicker with one another all that much.
It's true.
They only are seen to bicker with one another in tiny instances. Like, I feel like the episode would have been improved by like an extra 4 minutes just of them bickering about something. Like, I feel like that would have improved the entire episode for me.
Yeah, I think that if you're gonna have bickering robots, you should really have them go all out. Yeah, I think there were a lot of missed opportunities. I guess another thing that kind of bothered me was the Doctor killing Dazzler.
Yes, I do admit that Dazzler getting killed by the Doctor bothered me. That's not going to make any sense to people who are listening to this. But there's only one person in this episode that the Doctor kills, so
True.
They're going to know.
Yes, I believe his actual name was Solomon.
Not to be confused with Solomon from Daleks in Manhattan.
Right. Wouldn't want to confuse those two. The Doctor did not murder him.
Daleks murdered him,
yes,
actually.
Right. Very different. But anyway, yes, Dazzler. I mean, I feel like his death would have kind of made more sense if it had been required in order to save the others. Like, if Dazzler's death was the sacrifice that the dinosaurs demanded, then I think I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, I was kind of bothered by it, but I think in that case it would bother me even more if
really?
if someone demanded that he die and the Doctor said, yeah, okay. That would have bothered me even more.
Okay, fair enough. But if in order to save everyone else, Dazzler had to die, then I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, that's true. I could see what you're saying. Yeah, the notion that the Doctor, he even says to the Doctor, "There's no way you're going to let me die," which I kind of agreed with at that moment.
Right.
But the Doctor's like, "Turns out, you're wrong."
Right, and I mean, yes, Dazzler committed genocide, and he ought to be punished, but I don't know if death is the right punishment for that. I mean, I think death is kind of okay if, or I think that death is an acceptable solution if it's clear that the person being executed can't be, like, I don't know, rehabilitated or whatever. But I don't know if we really see that, and I feel like some sort of like eternal punishment would have almost been more poetic.
Like Family of Blood style.
Yes, exactly, Family of Blood style.
You know, usually when the villain dies, it's usually, you know, the doctor tries to save them, and they're like, no.
Right.
Because their own horribleness prevents them from taking the doctor's help or whatever.
Right.
Having the doctor just let someone die when they're begging him to save them, that doesn't sit quite right with me either, I guess. But that was one of the legitimate problems, I agree, with this episode. And I wonder whether it's something that they have any intention of sort of following up on, not necessarily in particularly this case, but if saying like, oh, the doctor is changing and becoming more brutal and more callous.
Yes, I think that is the one thing that would make this more palatable, is if it is addressed again in future episodes that, hey, you know, you were kind of a dick back there, or just, yes, if it's just shown that the Doctor's getting kind of darker as a sort of character, then I think that if it's addressed, then I think that would make this okay. If this is just like kind of heralding the beginning of kind of a downward spiral, then I'm okay with that. It makes no sense to me that the missiles, the problem of the episode, should be tracking this little hexagonal ball thing. First of all, I don't understand why the ship has this. It would make a lot more sense for missiles to track, like, a big heat signature, or, I don't know, like a huge radioactive source, you know, which I'm sure that this ship uses some sort of radiation too.
It uses waves.
Okay, well, I'm sure it emits some kind of radiation as a part of this wave engine, which I'm not even going to touch because even the Doctor admits that it's ridiculous. So these missiles are tracking this little glowing hexagonal ball, and I don't understand how. I mean, even if we assume that this little ball is emitting some kind of unique signal, why does this exist? Like, why is there this thing in here? Was this some sort of standard that was, like, maybe incorporated into, I don't know, maybe like one of the more boring articles of the Shadow Proclamation? Like they're just like, you know, hey guys, any ship you make, you gotta have this little tracking ball so that we can lock our missiles onto it.
Well, I would assume that this is pre-Shadow Proclamation.
Well, right.
It's from Silurian times.
Right, okay, so here's another thing. Why would the Silurians have this? I mean, maybe I'm misunderstanding this, but I didn't really think the Silurians really had that much of a presence in the intergalactic community. I thought they were kind of like loners.
I think they were, and the purpose of this spaceship was an arc.
Right. It's not really intended for intergalactic travel, and even if this were some sort of standard, I don't know why the Silurians would be adhering to it. So I just don't really get that. And even if we accept that the Silurians did this for some reason, why are the missiles tracking onto it? It seems to me like this is a huge design flaw. Like, all you'd have to do is eject your little tracking thingy and boom, no missiles. Anybody who would want to just evade missile attacks would just eject their little ball thingy.
I don't know that this is like a standard in any way. It could just be this thing that the ship happens to have, and so when these Indian Space Agency people locate it, they decide, well, seeing as this is something that's emitting some kind of signal that's easy for us to lock onto, we'll just lock onto that because it happens to work in that way. It's not like a thing that is designed for the purpose of missiles to lock onto.
Okay, well, I'm fine with that, except that there is no implication that that's the case. First of all, when the Doctor's talking to, at the beginning of the episode, he's talking to the whatever space people who are going to launch missiles at it, they never say to him, like, hey, we found this sort of unique tracking signal, and if it weren't some standard, I think they'd point it out. Like, hey, we found this weird thing and we've locked onto it. They never really say that. They say that they've sent up a probe, and they say that this probe took some readings, but they never say, like, that the readings brought back this signal that was really interesting. And even when Nefertiti asks if they've communicated in any way, they don't say, like, hey, we're getting this signal, but there's no other communications. They just say there was no response. So that's not at all addressed there. And then furthermore, the Doctor just seems to know that there is this thing. Like, he says, oh, missiles are very literal. They just go after this thingy. Which implies that this is something that missiles routinely do.
Okay, that's fair. I don't know. I mean,
that bothered me.
Yeah, that is a weird thing that isn't very well explained.
This is the kind of stuff that bothered me. I guess what really bothered me was just that there are probably better ways to write this, and they didn't. I don't know. But it was still a fun episode.
It was. There were a lot of dinosaurs on a spaceship. A lot of Amy's lines were the best lines Amy's been given ever, in my opinion.
Yes.
I thought this is the best Amy's ever been written, in my opinion. This one episode.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Getting just back to the gang, the one thing I did like about it was that it was kind of necessary that there be a lot of people brought along because there was no indigenous people to befriend, I guess. Because that seems to be kind of the Doctor's MO, is he brings a companion or two, and then they meet some locals who they have the adventure with, and then the locals kind of, whatever, go back to their lives at the end of the episode, and then the Doctor and his companions leave. And because this was a derelict spaceship, I guess, it helped that there were more people that the Doctor had to bring along, or chose to bring along. And that I can get behind. And I think that worked out well in the episode.
Yeah, it's a little weird, though, that the Doctor would even be friends with a big game hunter.
That's true. Yeah, the implication is that they had some previous adventure together, but I don't know what that adventure would have been, so I don't really know. That was a little unusual, I think.
I liked those characters. I liked Brian.
Yes.
I thought that was good casting because he looks kind of like Rory.
Yes.
That was a good character, and it's not really clear why he didn't meet the Doctor at the wedding.
Right. Maybe he was sick with the flu.
Spanish flu?
Yes, exactly.
Just like Wilf.
Exactly.
That's because Wilf wasn't at Donna's wedding.
Right. Just bringing up a complaint from last episode again, I've decided I do not like the new titles.
You have decided that you do not like them.
I have decided, yes. I think that they're kind of gimmicky and silly. I just think, changing them... First of all, I don't like the colors. And I think that, changing them every episode... Changing the Doctor Who logo design every episode is kind of silly.
I wonder what it's going to be next week with the Western theme. I wonder what that's going to look
Probably the Playbill font.
Ugh, I hope not.
Yeah, I'm not wild about it. Or maybe there'll be bullet holes in it.
All of these could happen.
Yes, and more. Yeah, I'm not wild about it, the new title sequence.
I kind of like it.
All right, well, I guess you're entitled to that opinion.
I hope so. I actually like it being more colorful, I guess.
Really?
Yeah. The notion that all of time and space, the vortex is just this gray storm cloud tunnel, blue-gray thing. I don't like that as much.
Really?
I don't know. It kind of worked somehow, I guess, when we first saw it, but I got tired of it. I didn't think it was as cool looking as the one from series 1 through 4. And I thought it was time for a change, in my opinion.
All right, well, I could see that. But I guess what bothers me, I'm not really bothered by the fact that it's more colorful. I think, sure, the time tunnel can be as colorful as you like it to be.
That's pretty damn colorful, because I like it nice and colorful.
And there is something to be said for, I don't know, all of time and space. Probably a pretty vibrant, sort of colorful thingamajig. But the fact that they just slapped on, a color filter to the existing title sequence, I guess that's kind of what bothers me. And that it was just sort of a lazy, low-budget modification.
And you would have liked something brand new?
I think I would have. If they're going to change it, I think that they should change it, full on. And I don't know. I'm sure that they have that, whatever animation saved on somebody's computer and they can just re-render it. It'll take a week, but redo the clouds a different color, change up some, I don't know, textures, whatever, and make it more colorful, and then just re-render it. I'm guessing that's what you do. I don't know.
Probably.
But the one thing that I actually do like about it is that I really can't object to the name credits, because I think that those are a lot clearer, and I like that. Because I think before, the sort of metallic font thingy that they were using that just sort of flew at you, that was kind of really hard to read. And I know that that's kind of been the way that they did the opening credits as far back as, as 2005. But at least in 2005 it was readable. Mm-hmm. And I think that, I think they kind of changed the font a little bit for Series 6, and it was a little bit more readable, but it was still more difficult than I think it ought to have been. And so I do like this sort of new font that is perfectly readable, and I can see their names clearly. I don't know why I'm making such a big deal out of this. I just really like seeing names.
No, well, I don't remember whether we discussed this. I think we might have discussed a long time ago, back when we first did our discussion of Series 5, about the font and how, or maybe this was just something we discussed, as human beings not having a podcast. But I always thought the font was kind of silly before. It was very self-consciously spacey, sci-fi, future-y. And I think this one is a lot classier, and I like that.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. I find it a little interesting, and I guess maybe I shouldn't, but I think it's kind of interesting that this is the third straight season that features the Silurians in some capacity.
True. True. And also, this episode was written by Chris Chibnall, who wrote the Silurian two-parter in Series 5.
Right.
And not to derail that comment, but I think Chris Chibnall was another reason I had kind of low expectations for this episode.
Oh, really?
Not that I disliked the Silurian two-parter, but his previous Doctor Who episode was 42 from Series 3, which I didn't think was that great. And he also played a key role in Series 1 and 2 of Torchwood, which I am not a huge fan of. I think he basically was sort of semi-showrunner with Russell T Davies on those two series, and so I sort of had a bad opinion of him, I guess, that I was not deserved, because I really, unlike you, I thought this was a really great episode of Doctor Who, and made me excited to see the fact that the episode in 2 weeks, which he is also writing. But anyhow, Silurians.
Yes. So, no, and I mean, like, I guess, there's really no reason not to if you've got these Silurian costumes, because I'm sure that they put a lot of work into them for Series 5. So, rather than just having them sit around collecting dust, why not have this?
But I don't think it's a reusable costume because it's facial makeup.
Oh, is it?
Which is why whenever the Silurians show up, you get one or two people with exposed faces, and the rest of them wear masks.
I get, yeah. Huh.
Same thing for the Centaurans, in fact.
Interesting.
You'll usually see a lot of Centaurans wearing helmets, and then, one will take off their helmet. Jadoon, too.
Right. Huh. I'm assuming that the Jadoon aren't just, like, makeup. I'm sure there's a prosthetic in there.
No, yeah, those are masks, but I think the masks are expensive compared to the helmets.
Right. I'm sure that they are. I did like the premise for this episode, and I think that it's cool, the idea of a Silurian arc. I think that's a cool premise.
Yeah, it hadn't even occurred to me when they said Dinosaurs on a Spaceship that it could involve the Silurians, but it's kind of obvious in retrospect, which is always kind of fun. Like, oh, why didn't I think of that?
Right.
It's kind of funny because there's a classic series episode, or a classic series serial entitled The Ark, featuring William Hartnell, where humans leave a dying Earth and bring all the animals with them, and there's a real elephant in the episode, which is expensive to have because elephants are expensive.
Okay. So they just got like a real elephant?
They have a real elephant. Like, in the 60s Doctor Who era, oftentimes if they had to have animals, they'd just be stock footage.
Right.
So when this elephant is introduced in the episode, at first it looks like it's stock footage, and then the Doctor and friends walk into the shot. It's like, whoa, they actually got an elephant.
Huh, that's interesting. Was the elephant crucial to the plot?
Oh, no, not at all. Had nothing to do with anything.
Oh, okay.
Aside from the fact that this was on an ark that had all kinds of animals and stuff.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, sure then. I could buy that.
But yeah, so that's sort of a concept that humans do. So why wouldn't Silurians do the same thing? Have their own ark with their own animals that they take off into the stars.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
But at the end of the episode, it's a little unclear to me. It seems, I guess he takes the dinosaurs back to their era?
Does he? Is that? Oh, yeah. I guess so.
Which doesn't make any sense.
Right. Like, these
are contemporaneous dinosaurs.
Right. And also, but, like, he made such a big deal about, like, we gotta preserve these dinosaurs. He's gonna, like, drop them off and, oh, here, have a meteorite.
Yeah. Well, by meteorite, you mean Adric, but...
Yes.
Say hello to Adric, guys. But yeah, well, the thing is, I mean, the entire point of what the Silurians were doing was to not have them perish from Adric. But he puts them right back there, for one thing. For another thing, they probably can't breed because when you separate two populations for such a long time, a thing happens called evolution. Right. And they sort of change a little bit. And these are visibly a lot like the dinosaurs that we know from our history or whatever, from museums and whatnot. But presumably they are in some ways a little bit genetically different, unless they've been in stasis.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing is if the ship was on an autopilot back to Earth, I'm sure that the Silurians had some game plan for landing and not crashing. It could be that there was no autopilot land. But, I mean, wouldn't it have been possible to just set it down on Earth and be like, oh, hey, guys, have some dinosaurs? I know it didn't work out too well in Jurassic Park, but they could have probably put him in some kind of zoo.
Or the Doctor could have found another place for him.
Oh, yeah, and that would set us up for a future episode, Planet of the Dinosaurs. Probably. I don't know. I just made that up. I want to write this episode now.
Yeah, do it. Well, I mean, it's too late for that because he took them back to Siluria, which is apparently the ancient Silurian civilization.
Are we 100% sure that he took him back to prehistoric Earth?
No.
Because that makes so little sense to me. I want to say that he almost just took him somewhere else.
We're not 100% sure, but at the end they get a postcard from Siluria, which seemed to me to indicate that he had taken them back to the ancient Silurian civilization.
It could very well be that the Doctor just decided, we as a universe are probably done with dinosaurs. We can probably just let them all die off now. He made that executive decision.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, that doesn't really sit well with me.
They're probably fine, those dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Oswin wasn't in this episode.
She wasn't. That's right. So that really shoots holes in our theory that she's in every episode.
Yeah. Well, I didn't notice her.
True. She could have been like an electronic voice for the computer or something. Did the computer have an electronic voice? I don't remember.
The computer didn't speak.
Okay, well then, never mind.
I don't know. She could have been in some background somewhere. Or...
Yeah. So that just confuses me all the more, because that was like the one explanation that I kind of really hoped to be true for why she was in Asylum of the Daleks, was that she was actually just going to be in every episode. And failing that, I really don't know what to make of Asylum of the Daleks now.
Well, I think it actually kind of would have just been distracting if she had just popped up in this episode, kind of like how in the middle of episodes in Series 4, you just randomly see Rose for no reason.
True.
For instance, in Midnight, that's my least favorite part of Midnight, the part where there's just this distracting image of Rose that has nothing to do with anything, and that is otherwise one of my favorite standalone Doctor Who episodes, but it's got that weird little arc thing in there that just pulls you out of it.
That's true. Yeah, I think that, it probably would have been a distraction. And I guess it would really only be payoff to people who were confused by Asylum of the Daleks. And anyone who didn't know about this casting probably would have found it more confusing. There would have been a net gain in confusion. I guess that was just kind of a selfish hope on my part, because I wanted it to make sense.
Yeah, well, maybe it will.
Yeah.
Eventually.
I hope so. But I don't really have that much hope.
Well, she could appear in the last episode of this little run. She could appear in the, the Angels Take Manhattan. Or she could appear in... she is going to appear in the Christmas special, allegedly.
Right.
What if she's just not the new companion at all?
That could very well be. Maybe Stephen Moffat is really playing the long game here, and
it's Simon Pegg.
Yes. I have another complaint, but it's not about this episode. It's actually about a commercial that BBC America seems hell-bent on airing as much as possible during Doctor Who. And I actually didn't notice it on the first episode, but it was repeated, I think, several times for this episode. And it's this commercial that's advertising new Doctor Who toys. It's possible that you wouldn't even see it anyway if you fast forward through the commercials, which I routinely do, but I guess I just didn't this time. I hated it so much that I was watching it kind of on repeat.
Spoken like a true Doctor Who fan.
And I actually transcribed the commercial onto my HP touchpad because I hated it. My hate was so great. And so I'd like to read it back in my best impression, using the tone and pronunciation that the announcer used in the commercial. The 11th Doctor has arrived with his new companion, Amy Pond, and a new sonic screwdriver. He's confronted Hawthorne and the terrifying Smilers, and saved planet Earth from a new race of Daleks. So, and then they go on to say whatever toy company it is. This is so painfully out of date. This was clearly just recorded within the first few episodes of Series 5.
Yeah.
Yet they are completely content on showing it during Series 7. And this was by no means a high-budget commercial. This was, SD quality. Would not take them more than 5 minutes to record a new one. But what? So, I don't know why they're advertising Smiler action figures.
I'm not caught up on Doctor Who action figures, in that I don't know what's currently available. Could it be that they just haven't made new action figures?
I'm not
for Series
I'm not
6
denying
days?
that's a possibility. But why are they calling them new? And just why? Why would you? And what child? Moreover, what child wants Smiler action figures at this juncture?
Well, what child wants, the faceless grandmother from The Idiot's Lantern? What child wants that?
Wait, is that an action?
But they made that one.
They did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. But why are they advertising it as being, like, I don't like this. I am...
What child wants the mocks of Balhoun?
I don't know. Some completionist?
Some completionist child. Yes.
I don't know. And what bothered me most of all, I think, was just... Actually, it's a tie between calling Amy Pond the new companion and making a big deal about this new sonic screwdriver.
Toy commercials are very bad. In general.
I guess, but this was just so annoying.
Well, I think the thing is, toy commercials are very bad, and when you see a toy commercial for something you like, it's insulting.
Yes.
Doesn't it feel kind of insulting?
It does feel insulting. I feel like this one particularly so. But yeah, you're right. There is always a level of insult.
Are there children in this commercial?
No, it's just hands.
Child-sized hands?
Possibly. I don't know. I think it would be weird if it were like big, hairy adult hands.
Doctor Who action figures? I mean, you never know.
This commercial could have been, I suppose, produced and acted in by, like, comic book guy.
Well, the thing is, though, I mean, in the UK, Doctor Who is a family show.
Right.
Which is to say, it's a show that is aimed... I mean, I don't think it's accurate to say it's aimed at children, but it's aimed in such a way that children are not deliberately excluded.
Okay.
Which is something that we don't really have in the U.S. I mean, because there are shows for children, and then there are shows that are for people other than children. And Doctor Who is on at 9 p.m. in the U.S.
Right.
It's not child time. 9 p.m. is not child time.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
It's just a very strange thing to do, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would, when you put it like that, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It isn't child time.
Kids should be in bed.
They really should.
And if yours aren't, then what kind of parent are you?
Not a good one. It could be, I suppose, that they're counting on the DVR effect or whatever.
Well, yeah, because American children probably have the same capacity to like Doctor Who that UK children do.
I should think.
It's just, I think that the American television industry doesn't make it easy for the show to be broadcast in a way that's child friendly.
Yeah. I have to wonder how many children, like, because as you say, it's kind of a different thing in the UK where it's geared as a family show. But that's because, or, you know, in the UK that's kind of a thing, like, you know, they market it that way. Whereas in the US, I have to wonder how many families actually sit down and watch Doctor Who, because I think that it's probably more people like us.
Yeah, like people in their late teens and 20s.
Right.
Who are the same kind of people who would be watching, like a Firefly.
Right.
I mean, Firefly's a show that hasn't been on for many years, but...
a decade, in fact.
Right.
As of this year.
Wow. Like, the kind of people who would be watching, like, Warehouse 13 on Sci-Fi Channel, or Syfy,
right,
as it's called, or Battlestar Galactica.
Right.
Or the non-existent Blood and Chrome show, should it ever choose to exist.
Yes.
Fringe is another good comparison.
There you go, Fringe, yes. My whole family watches Fringe, however, I would not call it a family show.
It's a show, it's a show that prominently features family themes, like, there's a father and a son.
True. So yeah, I think I'm out of complaints. I mean, just overall with regard to Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, I mean, I liked the episode. I just think that there were a lot of things that held it from being, in my mind, a great episode.
Well, I mean, I thought the dinosaurs were cool. I thought the spaceship was cool.
Yeah.
I thought Matt Smith was really good.
Yeah.
He's always really good. I sometimes just forget to say good things about him because I've said them all already.
Well, right. He seems to just... I guess he was average in this episode, but average for him is so high above anything normal that, it almost is not noticeable how awesome he is. But no, I did really like Matt Smith in this episode, and I actually thought that the dinosaur models were really good. I like the CGI was good, but what I liked even better was the actual dinosaur sort of whatever models that were like puppets, I guess.
Yeah.
Particularly the sleeping baby T-Rex. I thought that was really well done. Even though it didn't really move at all. But I thought that was really good. So my hat is off to the design department on that one. If I were wearing a hat previously, it would be off.
Yeah. Well, maybe next time we should wear hats just in case.
Yes, I agree.
I think there was a lot of good in this episode, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see more episodes.
I agree. I think that next week looks really good.
It does look really cool. I hope that there is no singing in it, personally.
Singing?
Because there's a Doctor Who serial called The Gunfighters from the 1960s, which prominently features a song over and over and over, the same song. And I hope that they don't have one in this. I mean, because that's the last time Doctor Who has done a Western, so...
I see.
So far, out of a grand total of 1 out of 1 Westerns in Doctor Who has a song.
What? Wow, okay. I don't know, but in some sense, I don't know if I want to break that record. You know? I think we should keep it at 100%.
All right, well, I'm willing to... if it's a good song, I'd be okay with it.
What if it were, like, the hero of Canton?
That'd be fine. Also, if it was the same song from the Gunfighters in the 1960s, then that would be fine too. As long as it were a consistent song and not a different song.
Well, there you go.
Was it an elephant? I don't remember whether it was an elephant now. It could have been some other animal.
You can't back out of this now. Okay, so what... All right, let's talk about alternatives. What could this have been if it wasn't an elephant?
I don't know.
Was it like a hippo?
I don't think it was a hippo.
Hippos, I believe, are pretty violent creatures.
Yeah, they will protect their own and whatnot.
So probably maybe like a rhino.
It's an elephant. It's an elephant. Okay.
I'm glad we cleared that up.
I don't know how I could have doubted that, but I was like, it was an elephant, right? Right? Could have been a giraffe.
Well, and everything was black and white then, so, the grayness would not have, any animal, any African animal would have been
Could have been
gray.
a dog.
Clifford.
Yeah.
Because he would have been gray, It wouldn't have been red.
True.
Would not have been the Clifford we know and love.
No, certainly not.